In episode 55, Residual and Secondary Risks, we explore the hidden aftermath of risk response, what remains and what arises after we act. Every change, even a good one, reshapes the landscape. Controls, mitigations, and contingencies rarely close risk entirely, they modify it. The illusion of finality can be dangerous. Once the team marks a mitigation as complete, attention drifts, yet the system may still hold vulnerability in a different form. Understanding residual and secondary risks keeps vigilance alive after the checklist ends. The goal is to ensure improvement doesn't quietly sow the seeds of new exposure.
Secondary risk is the new uncertainty created by the response itself. Adding a control often introduces side effects. A stronger firewall might slow performance, prompting staff to find unsafe workarounds. Outsourcing a risky process may create vendor dependency. These are not failures, they are system feedback. Each intervention changes conditions, and those changes carry their own probability and consequence. Secondary risks remind us that risk management is dynamic engineering, not static repair. The aim is to foresee and balance these side effects so that fixes do not quietly become the next problem. Reassessing probability, impact, and proximity after a response is the core of this discipline. Probability may drop, impact may shrink, but new interactions might shorten proximity, the time window between trigger and consequence. Reassessment is not paperwork, it is recalibration of reality. Use updated data, monitoring feedback, and subject matter insight to revise the rating. If secondary risks appear, evaluate them on the same scales so their significance can be compared. Over time, repeated reassessment builds trend awareness, how responses are reshaping risk rather than merely shifting it sideways. Documenting assumptions behind new estimates is essential for traceability. Assumptions explain why the new risk picture looks different and what conditions make it valid. If a residual risk is deemed low because system redundancy now covers outage, that statement must note dependency on a specific configuration or vendor contract. Documentation preserves logic for future reviewers who will wonder why confidence was high. When those assumptions change, hardware aging, contract expiring, staff turnover, the recorded reasoning tells you exactly which estimates to revisit. Without that trail, residual analysis becomes memory work rather than knowledge work. Once updated, decide whether further treatment is warranted. Some residual risks remain above appetite and require new actions. Others settle acceptably low and move to monitoring only. Secondary risks must undergo the same test. Treatment decisions should weigh cost, feasibility, and exposure level just as in initial analysis. A structured decision log ensures that inaction is deliberate, not neglectful. You may not eliminate every residual, but you can demonstrate conscious alignment between remaining exposure and organizational comfort. That distinction protects both results and accountability. Align residuals explicitly with appetite statements so that leadership sees the relationship between remaining exposure and tolerance. Appetite statements translate abstract tolerance into categories: financial, safety, compliance, or reputation. Mapping residuals against them clarifies which parts of the system still sit near red lines. This alignment also drives prioritization. Management can decide whether to adjust appetite, allocate additional resources, or accept current status. Alignment turns numbers into narrative, showing how remaining risk fits or does not fit the organization's self-declared boundaries. Assign owners for continued monitoring of each residual and secondary risk. Completion of mitigation does not mean the record leaves someone's desk. Ownership ensures observation continues as conditions evolve. Owners track metrics, review trigger data, and report status changes. A clear custodian prevents residual risks from falling into institutional blind spots. The act of assigning ownership also reinforces cultural accountability. Risk management does not stop with delivery. It persists through the life cycle of operation, guided by people who understand both the history and the context. Add indicators and trigger conditions for ongoing monitoring. A residual risk without metrics soon fades from awareness. Define what signals would show change variance in defect rates, supplier lead times, or system performance. Early warning indicators tie vigilance to data rather than intuition. When the indicator moves beyond agreed thresholds, it prompts reassessment or escalation. This method keeps the monitoring lightweight yet effective. Indicators ensure that residual risk oversight is proactive rather than reactive, providing the heartbeat that keeps the system alert between formal reviews. Escalate intolerable residuals immediately once they cross appetite thresholds. Escalation is not blame, it is governance. Residuals can grow quietly as assumptions age or context shifts. A routine vendor issue can become a systemic dependency, or a low-rated technical vulnerability can become critical after a technology upgrade. Escalation channels must be predefined so that alerts reach decision-makers without bureaucratic friction. Fast escalation preserves control. It ensures that leaders see emerging breaches in appetite early enough to act before they mature into incidents. Track cumulative residual exposure trends to understand whether overall project or portfolio risk is truly declining. Individual mitigations may show progress, but aggregated exposure might remain steady if new secondary risks offset the gains. A cumulative view reveals whether your system is becoming safer or simply different. Plotting total residual value over time, whether qualitative or quantitative, helps decision-makers see improvement or stagnation. This long-term lens converts scattered data points into strategic insight. It tells the organization whether its investment in controls is producing net benefit or just motion. Close residual and secondary items using evidence-based criteria. Closure should depend on observed stability and validated assumptions, not elapsed time. For example, a residual supply chain risk may close after 3 successful audit cycles confirm performance, not merely after a quarter passes. Define closure tests up front and record evidence at the time of evaluation. Premature closure erodes credibility and invites unpleasant repetition. Evidence-based closure transforms "we believe" into "we confirmed," protecting both the integrity of the register and the trust of stakeholders who rely on it. Communicate trade-offs transparently as residuals and secondary effects surface. Executives and teams need to understand what the organization accepted, what it still carries, and why. Avoid framing residuals as failure. They are the rational remainder of imperfect reality. What matters is that trade-offs are known, deliberate, and visible. Transparency builds confidence that risk management is thoughtful rather than theatrical. It also prevents misaligned expectations, where one group assumes closure while another still monitors exposure. Shared understanding is the final layer of control. Vigilance after done matters most because risks mutate quietly when attention fades. Residual and secondary analysis keeps the organization honest about what has truly changed and what remains. By reassessing, documenting, aligning, and monitoring, you extend the life of discipline beyond the action. The reward is a system that continues to learn even after milestones pass, a culture where completion does not equal closure, and where improvement continues in the background, safeguarding tomorrow with the lessons of today. Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit DailyCyber.News.